Well, the San Francisco 49ers have had an interesting couple of years at the quarterback position. It began with the big move prior to the 2021 draft, giving up, in all, 3 first-round picks and a third-round pick in order to acquire Trey Lance. It hasn't worked out, obviously. He has hardly played in 2021. We thought there were going to be Taysom Hill packages. He barely was on the field. It became a distraction. Jimmy G was the guy last year. Trey Lance was the guy until week 2, broken ankle, and then it was Jimmy G again until he got injured, and it was Brock Purdy. Now, Purdy, the last guy drafted in 2022, is the presumed starter, assuming they get him healthy. The report that landed yesterday, 49ers fielding calls on Trey Lance. Now, look, there have been reports that have emerged in the past from the same reporter that a team was fielding, not making calls about a player, and I heard immediately from others, no, the team is making the calls. Now, I haven't heard that the 49ers are actually making the calls, but the mere fact that this is coming from the 49ers, who else would be in a position to leak to anyone that the 49ers are fielding calls other than the 49ers? They want this out there. They want it to be known that they're open for business. This is part of the nuance of negotiation, of negotiating from a position of strength. Oh, we're not trying to trade him. No. Oh, that's your offer? No, we're not trying to trade him. What makes you think we're trying to trade him? Somebody reported we're fielding calls. We didn't say they're fielding calls. We're not even fielding calls. You want to trade him? It's going to cost more. So, we saw how stubborn they were with Jimmy G when the window was open for a limited time for him to be traded. They can field all the calls they want, Chris. I have a feeling that they're going to want so much for Trey Lance to save face in connection with the reality of what they gave up to get him, that they're not going to be able to trade him. I'll be stunned if they find a trade partner for Trey Lance.
Yeah, I mean, first, the value of Trey Lance and what he is right now, I mean, that's a discussion in itself that we can dive into here in a second. I mean, am I surprised to hear this, that they're taking calls or they called people, whatever you want to say? Am I surprised? No. I mean, I said this to Matt Maiocco of San Francisco beat writer out there, NBC Sports, Matt Maiocco, right? I said it out at the Super Bowl. I just said, he's like, well, what about Trey Lance? I was like, anything's on the table. I mean, it wasn't like inside info. Anybody that pays attention to football, you'd go, wait, a guy that was a third-round pick, they found the third pick of the draft, they found a new starting quarterback. He hasn't played much. It hasn't worked. There's a lot of, negative critiquing of him around everywhere. Like, to think that, that a trade wasn't an option, I thought that was pretty obvious, I guess is what I'm saying. That there at least would be these kind of calls or conversations that go out there. I mean, he's on record, Shanahan, is saying Brock Purdy's the starting quarterback, period, right? We know he likes Sam Darnold, right? So I think Sam Darnold, they're completely comfortable with him being the backup quarterback or even being the starter if Brock Purdy can't start this start of the year because of the elbow issue there. But, the big thing is, yeah, like you said, it's the optics of it, all they traded to give it, right? Did they get anything that even remotely gives them an offer to let them save face in this situation? Or do they just go, screw it, this is not going to work, and we don't want to answer questions, and let's just rip the Band-Aid off, and we made a mistake, and let's move on from life here? It could go a lot of different ways here. I'll be interested to see what happens here with the Trey Lance. But I do feel like, Mike, we have gotten into the territory maybe of like we see with players like an Evan Ingram with the Giants or whoever. Maybe a new look, a new team, a new feel would do.
Need a fresh start.
Yeah, would do good for both sides here.
And especially for the kid.
Yes.
Look, he was under immense pressure from the moment his career started. Everything they gave up to get him on a Super Bowl-ready team. All we need is a quarterback we can rely on, a guy who can stay healthy, a guy who can run the offense. He hasn't had a chance to learn how to run the offense because, first of all, he wasn't deemed to be good enough to overcome Jimmy Garoppolo as a rookie. And remember that preseason game against the Chargers when Garoppolo struggled, and you had said that Kyle seemed frustrated because that was the moment that Lance could have seized the job, and he just didn't. And they were going to do packages for Trey Lance, and who knows what the real story is there. All I know is after that season ended, Jimmy Garoppolo said he wouldn't wish what he went through in 2021 on anyone. I wonder how active he was in saying, I'm not coming off the field. You want me to be your quarterback? I'm out here on the field. You can't yank me off the field for a play here or a play there. You either want me to run the offense or you don't. It reminds me all the way back to 2009 in the preseason when the Eagles were doing some Mike Vick plays and Donovan McNabb's doing this on the sideline. Like, no, I'm the quarterback. I mean, that's that when that wildcat alternate quarterback thing first became popular in the NFL, one of the accepted realities was if you have a franchise quarterback, you'd never take the ball out of his hands.
Right.
So I just wonder how much of that tension was part of it in 21. And then last year, he's the guy until he isn't. And yeah, it just happened. And he needs a fresh start. But I think the 49ers, based upon what we saw with how they handle Garoppolo, are stubborn, they're headstrong, and they're not going to give up Trey Lance for whatever the best offer is. You know, we talked about Lamar Jackson. I want $50,000 for the car. All anyone's offering is $30,000. They're not taking best offer in San Francisco. They're going to have a floor they want, and if they don't get it, they're just going to keep Trey Lance, and that's a shame because it's no good for the kid. And he's going to have to see, does Brock Purdy get injured? Does Sam Darnold get injured? How do I get onto the field to ever really kickstart my career? And maybe he will, but he'd be better off going somewhere else where he gets a fresh start.
I agree, right? And you know, the value of Trey Lance, I mean, what would would the 49ers trade him for a fourth rounder right now? If I was Kyle asked me, I'd go,
no,
trade him.
I don't think
I know.
they would.
I would say you should do it,
I don't think they would.
I know. You're right. I don't know if they would either. And, you know, what I would say to that is, you know, one, the value is only going to go down if Brock Purdy or Sam Darnold beats him out in the, you know, as the backup. Like, okay, forget it ever trading him if once that happens, right? But, yeah, is there some teams out there that'll, you know, that like Trey Lance before, you know, when he was drafted, right? We had always heard during that process, everybody heard. The Falcons liked Trey Lance. They were hot on him, right? There was, you know, and then, of course, we've connected dots with Rand Carthon, the new GM of the Tennessee Titans. And, of course, when he got hired by the Titans, Trey Lance put out the fingers crossed emoji as in implying, like, I hope you bring me there. That's how I took it, right? But, yeah, what is that value of Trey Lance? And what I worry about, too, Mike, on top of that is, again, what we talked about in the draft process, it's even worse now. Trey Lance hasn't played a football season in 3 years. Like, what? That's unbelievable. He played 1 year of starting quarterback in North Dakota State, had a COVID year and played one game, had a rookie year and played a few plays and then one game. And then last year, injury, right? So that's where you got to worry about Trey Lance's future as well. It's just the fact and lack of reps on the field have to be a little concerning too.
I reported yesterday that the Vikings and the 49ers talked about Trey Lance at the scouting combine.
Yeah.
Now, there were also rumors at the time linking Kirk Cousins to the Vikings. I don't know that they actually had conversations. I mean, to the 49ers.
Yeah.
I don't know if they actually had conversations about Cousins, but they did have conversations, I'm told, about Lance. And it wouldn't be a surprise if it would have been a Cousins for Lance flip-flop. I don't know what else goes on. I think that the 49ers probably have to give more to get that done. It can't just be straight up Trey Lance for Kirk Cousins. But right now, you know, the Vikings are looking for a guy that they can develop for a year behind Kirk Cousins. I don't think it makes sense for the Vikings to get Lance if Cousins is the guy this year. I think it makes sense for Lance to go somewhere where he has an opportunity to be the starter in 2023. He doesn't need to sit on the bench for another year. Chris, I got one for you.
Yeah.
This goes back to, and it's funny that people just think that Nick Caserio, there's no way he's leaving the Texans because he came out this week and said he's not leaving. Again, until the owners say they're not making a change, we have to keep an eye on the possibility. And the next step in that rumor mill as it relates to the Texans, Mike Silver of the San Francisco Chronicle said this last week on Twitter, that the talk is that the Texans would target assistant GM of the 49ers, Adam Peters.
Right.
So let's say the play is we don't take a quarterback in Houston with a first-round pick. We focus on other positions. And our quarterbacks post-draft are Case Keenum and Davis Mills. And then all this other stuff happens. That would be a destination for Trey Lance, especially if Peters is the guy who talked Kyle Shanahan off of Mac Jones and onto Trey Lance. I mean, I've said this before. Somebody talked Kyle Shanahan out of waiting for Kirk Cousins and accepting Jimmy Garoppolo in 2017 when they were just months away from signing Kirk Cousins. And somebody talked Kyle Shanahan, you believe this too, out of Mac Jones and into Trey Lance. If Adam Peters is the guy who talked him into Trey Lance, it would make sense if all that other stuff happens for Adam Peters to want Trey Lance in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you're right. You connect those dots. Yeah, again, I don't know all those things, but yeah, everybody thinks Adam Peters was a huge Trey Lance guy, right? No doubt about it. Yes. Do I think Shanahan in the process wanted Mac Jones and somewhere it changed, and my assessment of public pressure, it became a gif and a meme thing. You're going to draft Mac Jones over this guy, Justin Fields, who had his shirt off, and it became a huge thing there. All of it just started to pile on. So that's my feel, right? I'm never going to get, the real truth of that from my friend Kyle Shanahan there. But that would be what I'd have to say to connect those dots, certainly. And what you're saying there, yeah, if that came to light or came to truth where Adam Peters moved there, yeah, you would think that, yeah, there'd be a good chance. There'd be a good chance. Or it's the opposite, where they go, wait, no, we've seen Trey Lance the last few years, and the new offensive coordinator in Houston, who's from San Francisco, has also seen him and goes, we don't want any part of him, actually, because we know exactly what he is. So, yeah, there's just a lot of questions and unknown about Trey Lance right now where we're at.
Remember all that stuff from 2 years ago about just how Mac Jones looked in his Alabama uniform? He looked kind of like a lumpy baked potato, and
right.
It all wasn't fitting. And this guy's a first rounder, and then he shows up. It's like superhero stuff in New England. Not that he's had some fundamental change to his physique, but just how he looked, like right out of the gates. Like, is that the same dude? And yeah, there was. I'm thinking back to that. Like, wait a minute, you're leaning toward that guy as the number 3 overall
became
pick
a
when
thing.
You have these athletic specimens, like especially even in Justin Fields. I'm sure in hindsight they wish they'd have taken Justin Fields, not Mac Jones. But he's been the best of the 3 so far and has the, I think, highest ceiling. But bottom line is Trey Lance needs a fresh start. He deserves a fresh start. Not that what he thinks he deserves matters. 49ers have his rights for 2 more years on his rookie contract. 5th-year options in play. I can't imagine them exercising it, but I suspect based on the way they handle Jimmy Garoppolo, Chris, they're going to dig their heels in. They're going to want what they want, and if they don't get it, they're going to keep him around. And the easy argument is you never know what's going to happen.
That's right.
We're perfectly
especially
content
with them.
to put this guy on the bench.
Yeah.
Because look at what happened last year. We needed that third quarterback. He may come in and take us to a Super Bowl or to the brink of a Super Bowl like Brock Purdy did last year.
Yeah, no, I think that's very real too. That's where I could see them being totally fine with Trey Lance, and he's cost nothing really in the big scheme of things. And yeah, you still go, well, wait, there was things we like, so let's continue to develop him. And if he does get a chance, maybe we strike gold, with it when that time comes. But nobody's been cursed at that position more than the 49ers over the last 4 or 5 years. So I agree with your last sentiment there that three quarterbacks is not a crazy thought for the 49ers and what they've been through there.
Bottom line is if they had just waited for Kirk Cousins, and really, you know how I am.
You're not going to Kirk Cousins.
I love him. He'd have a couple of Super Bowl rings to go with Kirk O'Chains if he had become the 49ers starting quarterback in 2018. He'd have at least 1 and maybe 2. And we'd all feel very differently about Kirk Cousins.
Well, there's a part of me, and you've heard me say this before, I think they'd be in a different spot if they had Mac Jones. Mac Jones was made for that team. What are you talking about? Kirk Cousins? Mac Jones is the better version of Kirk Cousins coming out in the draft, right? So, yeah, again, I don't know what happens. Maybe Shanahan will write it in a book or what happened during that whole process there. But yeah, I certainly think they, could be in a different spot. We'll see. We know they're still damn good. They're in the Super Bowl window, but it is crazy with a team as talented as they are. Yeah, quarterback is a question mark as far as what's going to go on there this season.
And really, when you think about it, the 49ers have been, over the past 5 years, the best team in football. Good Lord. The best team in football, but they don't have a reliable quarterback. And, yeah, it could have been that guy. Man, that makes me feel pretty good about what I see when I get out of the shower every day, and I'm 57.
Oh, seriously, he didn't try to suck it in at all or anything right there, So I think that's gone away.
Look, I got to give him credit for posing for that photo with his shirt off, because he could have said, "Give me a second here."
Yeah, seriously.
I need a shirt. So kudos to Mac Jones for having the swagger to be willing to let it all hang out and say, "That's right, and I'm going in the first round of the draft." Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.